Alright then, is everyone ready? Alright, have any of you ever played golf? It's a pretty fun game, and in order to play this game, you need a few things. Otherwise, it's impossible to play golf. You need a club, you need a golf ball, you probably need a tee, and you need a place to actually, like a grounds, to play it on. Now, these things are all important to play golf, but when you're playing golf, are you really caring about how amazing your club is, or the fact that you're playing a really fun game of golf and the action in playing golf is fun? You're not valuing that you have a golf ball with you that brought you to be able to play golf. You're valuing the golf that you are actually playing, the game itself, not the objects you use to play the game. Now, just because chronological order, as the affirmative team has talked about, that freedom brings about obedience, it does not mean that we should be valuing this freedom beforehand. We see obedience is what fulfills spiritual growth today. And today that is what we are looking at, spiritual growth. We're not looking at which came first, the chicken or the egg. What we're looking at here today is which one helps us as Christians in the realm of Christianity to grow in our faith. I'll be looking at this through a few different points. I'll be looking at spiritual growth by looking at how obedience actually does help us, by looking at how inward regeneration comes about from spiritual obedience, and how outward regeneration also comes about from spiritual obedience. So when we take a look at it, let's be honest, all humans are sinful to the core. The Bible tells us this all the time. In Romans 3:23 it says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." And Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond all cure. Who can understand it?" You see, we as humans on the inside, we are dirty humans. We are very prideful, we lust, we cheat, we do things inside and we hate other people because that is who we are on the inside. Spiritual freedom, when we become Christians and we are given spiritual freedom, we are not suddenly made perfect. Christianity, when we become Christians, doesn't make us automatically perfect and make us at our destination. Christianity is a journey as we try to become more like Christ. And it is only through spiritual obedience and the changing of our heart that we can do this. You see, when we work with the Holy Spirit and we come to His leading, what happens when we're following the Holy Spirit is He works on the inside. The things that we are using is a barrier between us and God, things that we don't want to give up. But when we listen and we follow to the Holy Spirit, when we act upon spiritual obedience, what we see then is we are dropping down barriers that we are trying to put up between us and God. We are able to grow closer to us, to God. This shows us that spiritual obedience, when we're looking at our inward self, the Holy Spirit works with us with a sharp double-edged sword so that He is able to make us clean, to make us new. And the best way we can do that is through spiritual obedience. That is spiritual growth, the changing of the inside. And only spiritual obedience can provide that, not spiritual freedom. As my partner stated, spiritual freedom is only an option. It is not an action. Spiritual obedience is an action which leads to spiritual growth. Freedom, on the other hand, is just the option for you to take spiritual obedience. I now like to look at outward regeneration. When we change, it's not just an inward change that the Holy Spirit works in us when we take this spiritual obedience. It is also outwards. You see, our actions begin to change. As Christians, just because we are free does not mean we will take action. Many people have faith, but they do not have often the actions behind it to show that they actually believe in God and that their actions are trying to be as Christ would have them be. James talks about this in James chapter 2. I will be looking at verses 14, 17 through 18, and 26. When it says, "What good is it, my brothers, if some claim to have faith but no deeds? Can such faith save them? In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by actions, is dead. But someone will say, 'You have faith, I have deeds.' Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead." Freedom without spiritual obedience is dead. People can say they have spiritual freedom, but unless they show it by their spiritual obedience, that is how you can show that you have this freedom, is through the spiritual obedience. Not just because you have freedom, you take it through the action of obedience and listening to the Holy Spirit. So when we take a look at this outward regeneration, we see that our actions begin to change as well as we listen to the Holy Spirit and how He leads us. We see that both our inward and our outward actions begin to change as we enter into the spiritual obedience with the Holy Spirit. Spiritual freedom allows us, but nothing will happen if all we do is value our freedom. We have to take action with our spiritual obedience in order to spiritually grow and become closer to Christ. Now, I'd like to take a look now and just look at the wording of the resolution. It talks about in the realm of Christianity, we should value spiritual freedom above spiritual obedience. Now, spiritual freedom either leads to two things, obedience or disobedience. Now, when we have spiritual freedom, we've been asked in today's round to put obedience versus freedom up against each other, which means they can't be on each other's sides. So now we have freedom versus obedience, which means in this round, when you're voting and choosing to vote for freedom, obedience is on the other side, which means the only option freedom can then provide is disobedience. When we take a look at what's going on, well, how the resolution is worded, it puts the positive things that freedom creates, obedience, on our side, and puts the disobedience, our choice not to listen to the Holy Spirit, on the other side. Because as Christians, we are tempted. We aren't perfect people, and we do have this option to disobey. God did not make us as robots. He made us as human beings He wants to have a relationship with. And because of this, we do make mistakes sometimes. And those mistakes are disobedient to the Holy Spirit and to the Lord. And those disobedient things, while we are given mercy and grace, are a result of the freedom God has given us. Thank you so much.
Have a couple questions. My first one is, can you play golf without a golf club?
No.
No. All right, and in the same way, can you obey without spiritual freedom?
No.
No. All right, thank you very much. And then, can you get better at golf if you don't have the tools, the golf club, golf ball?
No. You need the tools.
So in the same way, can you grow in your faith if you don't have freedom?
No.
All right, thank you very much. And then you claimed that faith without works is dead. Now, if faith without works is dead, and you equated the faith to freedom, then if freedom is dead, then it's not really freedom at all, right?
If freedom can become dead, is what I'm saying. If all you're doing is valuing freedom in your faith, and you're not taking the spiritual obedience to follow through with it, it is meaningless.
But is dead freedom freedom?
No, it is nothing now.
All right, thank you very much. And my final question is, are you equating freedom with disobedience in your argument about the resolution?
Saying freedom either leads to two options, obedience or disobedience.
Okay.
Obedience is on our side of the resolution, so freedom can only equate to disobedience on your side.
But the fruits of the Spirit, do they have any law against them?
Do they have any law against them? No, they are when you, under spiritual obedience, the Holy Spirit leads you to these things.
But the fruits of the Spirit are allowed through spiritual freedom, correct?
They are allowed when the Holy Spirit works through you. Through spiritual obedience.
So without spiritual freedom, we would be unable to have it.
You need spiritual freedom in order to have spiritual obedience. But just because you need spiritual freedom does not mean you should be valuing above spiritual obedience.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.